Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Daisy Podcast. I'm Daisy, and as always, I'm very happy you're spending some time with us today.
And I'm Harry. It's great to be back again because today's topic is something that affects all of us, especially people who love making plans and then somehow forget about them later.
That already sounds like you're talking about yourself. Before we begin, if you enjoy learning English through real conversations, please like, comment, and share this episode with another English learner.
Yes, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel grow, and it allows us to create more free English learning content for you.
Harry, let me ask you something. What was the last big plan you made that never actually happened?
I have a perfect answer for that question. At the beginning of this year, I announced to all my friends that I was going to wake up at 5 o'clock every morning.
That sounds ambitious. How many mornings did you actually wake up at 5 o'clock?
I think it lasted exactly 3 days. On the fourth day, my alarm clock rang, I looked at it for 2 seconds, and then I decided that future Harry could continue the challenge without me.
That's a very common experience. Many people make exciting future plans, but reality sometimes has different ideas.
That's true, and it reminds me of something interesting. When we talk about future plans in English, many learners aren't sure which grammar structure they should use.
Exactly. Some people always use will, while others try to use going to for everything. Then there are situations where native speakers use the present continuous tense to talk about the future.
I remember being confused when somebody said, "I'm meeting my friend tomorrow." I thought they were talking about something happening right now.
That's a great example. Today, we're going to explore how native speakers naturally talk about future plans without making it feel like a grammar lesson.
And we're going to use plenty of everyday examples. By the end of this episode, you'll be able to talk about your future plans more confidently and more naturally.
Let's start with a simple question. Harry, what are you doing this weekend?
This weekend, I'm visiting my cousin in another city. We planned this trip 2 weeks ago, and I'm really looking forward to it.
That's interesting because you naturally used I'm visiting my cousin this weekend. You didn't say I will visit my cousin this weekend.
You're right. I didn't even think about the grammar when I said it.
That's exactly how native speakers usually talk. When an arrangement is already planned, it's very common to use the present continuous tense.
So if I already have a plan, I can say, "I'm meeting my manager tomorrow," or "I'm having dinner with my friends on Friday."
Yes, those sound very natural. The plan already exists, so the present continuous works perfectly.
That's actually easier than many learners think. Sometimes grammar books make everything seem more complicated than real conversations.
I agree. Let me give another example. Instead of saying, I will fly to Delhi next Monday, many people would naturally say, I'm flying to Delhi next Monday.
That sounds exactly like something I would hear in everyday conversation. It feels more personal and more immediate.
Now, let's look at another common structure. Suppose you've decided to start exercising next month, but you haven't made any specific arrangements yet.
Then I would probably say, "I'm going to start exercising next month." Is that right?
Yes, that's a perfect example. Going to is often used for intentions and plans that you've already decided on.
So, if I say, "I'm going to learn Spanish," it means I've already thought about it and made the decision.
Exactly. Maybe you haven't started studying yet, but the intention is there. That's why going to feels natural.
I think many learners use will in these situations because it's the first future form they learn.
That's very true. However, native speakers often reserve will for different situations, especially when a decision is made at the moment of speaking.
Can you give us an example?
Imagine we're at a restaurant and the waiter asks if anyone wants dessert. You look at the menu for a few seconds and suddenly decide.
Then I might say, I'll have the chocolate cake.
Exactly. The decision happened right then, so will sounds natural.
That's actually very useful. So, I'll have the chocolate cake feels better than I'm going to have the chocolate cake because I just made the decision.
You've got it. The timing of the decision often influences which future structure sounds most natural.
I think listeners are going to find that helpful. Understanding the reason behind the grammar makes it much easier to remember.
Speaking of future plans, let me ask our listeners a question. Think about something you're planning to do next month and try saying it aloud in English right now.
That's a great activity because speaking out loud helps build confidence. Don't worry if your sentence isn't perfect because practice is the fastest way to improve.
For example, you could say, I'm going to start a new course, or I'm visiting my family next month.
You could even say, I'm meeting an old friend if you already have an arrangement. These small differences make your English sound much more natural.
There's another expression I hear all the time. People often say, I'm thinking about, when discussing future possibilities.
That's very common in my conversations too. For example, I might say, I'm thinking about buying a new laptop later this year.
Exactly. That expression shows that the idea is still being considered. You haven't fully decided yet, but you're exploring the possibility.
That describes me perfectly whenever I look at online shopping websites. I'm always thinking about buying something, but I don't always buy it.
I think many listeners can relate to that experience. Looking at products is often easier than making the final decision.
Especially when the price appears on the screen. Suddenly, all of my exciting future plans become much less exciting.
That's a very realistic example. Money has a funny way of changing our plans.
It certainly does. Sometimes my plans for the future depend entirely on whether my wallet agrees with me.
That's a perfect place to pause for now, because we've already explored three very useful ways of talking about the future: present continuous, going to, and will.
In the next part, we're going to look at might, hopefully, future goals, and some common mistakes that English learners make when discussing future plans.
Stay with us, because the conversation is just getting started. We have some funny stories, practical examples, and speaking practice coming up.
And while you're waiting for the next part, think about one thing you're planning to do this year and how you would describe it in English.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we talked about using the present continuous, going to, and will when discussing future plans.
And now we're moving into situations where we're not completely sure about the future. Honestly, this is where many of my plans usually end up.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Not every future plan is a firm decision, and English has several useful ways to express uncertainty.
That's actually good news, because real life is full of uncertainty. Sometimes we have ideas, hopes, and possibilities rather than definite plans.
Exactly. One of the most common words for this situation is might. Native speakers use it all the time when they're unsure about something when they're
For example, I might go hiking this weekend if the weather is good. That means I haven't fully decided yet.
That's a perfect example. You can also say, I might start a new exercise program next month, or I might take an online course later this year.
I like using might because it feels honest. Sometimes people ask me about my plans, and I genuinely don't know what I'm going to do yet.
That's true. Life doesn't always provide clear answers, so words like might help us communicate realistically.
Another word I hear often is hopefully. People seem to use it everywhere.
They certainly do. Hopefully is useful when you're expressing a wish or expectation about the future.
So I could say, hopefully I'll finish my English course by December.
Yes, and that sounds completely natural. You're expressing hope, but you're also acknowledging that the future isn't fully under your control.
That's important because sometimes learners think future grammar is only about plans. In reality, it's also about dreams, hopes, and expectations.
Well said. Let me give another example. I could say, hopefully, we'll have a chance to travel more next year.
That sounds like something many people would love to say. Traveling always appears on people's future goal lists.
It does, and for good reason. Whenever I ask people about their future plans, travel is almost always near the top.
That reminds me of a funny conversation I had with a friend recently. He said he was planning to visit 5 countries this year.
5 countries? Sounds impressive. Did he manage to do it?
Not exactly. 3 months later, he was still planning the first trip and comparing hotel prices every evening.
Sometimes planning becomes the hobby instead of traveling itself.
That's what happened to him. He became an expert on flights, hotels, and travel videos without actually leaving home.
Many listeners probably know someone like that. It's a good reminder that future plans and future actions aren't always the same thing.
Speaking of plans, there's another useful expression. I'm planning to.
Yes, and that's one of the most practical phrases for English learners. It clearly communicates intention without sounding too formal.
For example, I'm planning to improve my English speaking skills this year.
That's a wonderful example. It sounds natural and clearly shows that you've already thought about the goal.
I also hear people say, I'm hoping to.
That's another excellent expression. I'm hoping to feels slightly softer because it includes both a plan and a wish.
So if I say, I'm hoping to get a promotion next year, I'm expressing a goal, but not making a guarantee.
Exactly. The future often involves uncertainty, and English provides many ways to express that uncertainty naturally.
Let's talk about a mistake I hear quite often. Some learners say things like, tomorrow I go to the office.
That's a common error. A more natural sentence would be, tomorrow I'm going to the office, or I'm going to the office tomorrow.
The second version definitely sounds more natural to my ears.
Another mistake is using will for every future situation. Grammatically, it's often understandable, but it can sound less natural.
That's interesting because many learners think more grammar automatically means more correctness.
Language isn't only about correctness, it's also about sounding natural in real conversations.
I think that's one of the biggest differences between learning English and actually using English.
I completely agree. Textbooks teach rules, but conversations teach rhythm and choice.
Let's give our listeners a quick challenge. Imagine that a friend asks you about your plans for next year.
Try answering with one of these structures. I'm planning to, I'm hoping to, I might, or hopefully I'll.
You could say something like, I'm planning to improve my fitness, or I might learn another language.
You could also say, hopefully I'll have more time to read books. which is a very natural response.
The more learners practice these patterns aloud, the faster they become automatic.
That's true, because fluency comes from repeated use. The goal isn't to remember a rule during every conversation.
The goal is to speak naturally, without stopping every few seconds to analyze grammar.
Exactly. That's why we're focusing on real situations rather than complicated explanations.
I have another question for you, Daisy. What's one future goal that you've been talking about for a long time?
That's a dangerous question. I've been saying I'm going to organize all my digital files for at least 3 years.
3 years is a very long planning stage. Those files are probably wondering if the project will ever begin.
I think they're losing confidence in me. Every few months, I announce that this weekend will finally be the weekend.
And then something more interesting appears.
Exactly. Suddenly, cleaning a kitchen or watching a documentary feels much more exciting.
I'm relieved to hear that even organized people have unfinished future plans.
Everyone does. That's another reason this topic is so useful, because future plans are part of everyday life.
In the next part, we'll explore future goals, long-term dreams, career plans, and the expressions native speakers use when talking about big life changes.
We'll also share some speaking exercises that will help you practice these future structures naturally in conversation.
Stay with us because the best examples are still coming, and some of Daisy's future plans might become even more interesting.
Welcome back, everyone. We've talked about everyday plans and uncertain future possibilities. But now, let's focus on something many people love discussing: long term goals and dreams.
That's one of my favorite topics because dreams are usually much bigger than weekend plans. They often involve the kind of future we hope to build over many years.
Exactly. When people talk about long term goals, they often use expressions like, "I'd like to," "My goal is to," and "I hope to."
Those expressions sound very natural because they focus on motivation rather than certainty. Most big goals take time, so we rarely know exactly how things will happen.
Let me ask you a question, Harry. What's a goal you'd like to achieve within the next 5 years?
I'd like to become much better at a foreign language. I enjoy learning languages, and I think being able to communicate with more people would be very rewarding.
That's a great goal. Notice how naturally you used "I'd like to." Native speakers use that expression constantly when discussing future ambitions.
I hear it all the time. People say things like, I'd like to start my own business, or I'd like to travel around the world.
Exactly. It's sometimes softer and more conversational than saying, "My goal is to."
Although, my goal is to can be very useful when you want to sound more focused. For example, my goal is to improve my English speaking confidence by the end of the year.
That's an excellent example. It sounds clear, positive, and realistic.
Speaking of goals, have you ever noticed how people become extremely productive when talking about future plans, but much less productive when it's time to start working?
That happens more often than people would like to admit. Creating plans can feel exciting because success seems very close.
Then Monday morning arrives, and suddenly those ambitious plans require actual effort.
That's when reality joins the conversation. Dreams are wonderful, but successful dreams usually need consistent action.
I once created what I called the perfect life plan. It included fitness goals, language goals, reading goals, career goals, and even cooking goals.
That sounds very organized. how did the plan work out?
By the third week, I spent more time updating the plan than following the plan. The plan itself became my main hobby.
That's surprisingly common. Some people become experts at planning and beginners at doing.
Fortunately, I learned an important lesson. Small actions repeated consistently are usually more powerful than huge plans.
That's excellent advice. And it applies to learning English too. Many learners have ambitious future goals, but steady practice often matters more than perfect planning.
That's true. Someone might say, I'm going to study English for 3 hours every day. But studying 30 minutes consistently can be much more effective.
Exactly. Future plans become meaningful when they connect to realistic habits.
There's another future expression I hear often. By next year.
That's a very useful phrase. It allows us to imagine where we'll be in the future and what we hope to accomplish by a certain time.
So I could say, by next year, I hope to be speaking English more confidently.
Yes, and you could also say, by next year, I'm hoping to complete several professional courses.
That expression feels motivating because it creates a target without sounding too rigid.
Another common phrase is in the future. Native speakers use it frequently when discussing general plans and possibilities.
For example, in the future, I'd like to spend more time traveling. That sounds very natural.
It does. You might also hear people say, in the future, I'd like to work remotely, or in the future, I'd like to move closer to my family.
It's interesting how future conversations often reveal what people truly value. Some people focus on career growth, while others focus on relationships or personal experiences.
That's a very thoughtful observation. Discussing future plans can tell us a lot about a person's priorities.
Let's imagine a realistic workplace conversation. Suppose a colleague asks, where do you see yourself in 3 years?
That's a classic question. A natural response might be, I'd like to develop new skills and take on more responsibility.
Or someone could say, I'm hoping to lead larger projects and continue growing professionally.
Exactly. Those answers sound positive, realistic, and natural.
Many English learners worry about finding perfect answers to these questions, but simple and honest responses usually work best.
I completely agree. Communication is often more effective when it's clear rather than complicated.
Let's give our listeners another speaking challenge. Think about your life 1 year from now and describe it using at least one future expression.
You could say, by next year, I hope to improve my English. Or, I'd like to be more confident when speaking with other people.
You could also say, I'm planning to learn a new skill, or hopefully I'll achieve one important personal goal.
Try saying your answer aloud. Speaking about the future is something you'll do often in real conversations.
That's why these expressions are so valuable. They're not only grammar structures, they're tools for sharing your hopes, plans, and ambitions.
One thing I love about future plans is that they give people a sense of direction. Even small goals can create positive momentum.
I agree. Sometimes the most important future plan is simply deciding to improve one small thing at a time.
That's a wonderful mindset, especially for language learners. Progress usually comes from many small improvements rather than one huge improvement.
And the good news is that every conversation is an opportunity to practice. Every time you talk about tomorrow, next week, or next year, you're using future English.
In the next part, we're going to move into practical speaking practice. We'll create real-life situations and help listeners respond using natural future expressions.
We'll also review the most useful phrases from today's episode and share some common conversation patterns that native speakers use regularly.
Stay with us because the final section will help you turn these grammar concepts into real communication skills.
And don't forget to think about one goal you'd like to achieve before this year ends. We're going to use those ideas in our upcoming speaking practice.
Welcome back, everyone. We've talked about future plans, future goals, and future possibilities. Now it's time to practice using these expressions in real-life situations.
This is my favorite part because listeners can immediately use these patterns in their own conversations. Learning becomes much easier when you connect grammar to real situations.
That's absolutely true. Let's imagine our first scenario. A friend asks, "What are you doing next weekend?"
A natural answer could be, I'm visiting my parents next weekend. We haven't seen each other for a few months, so I'm really looking forward to it.
That's a great response because it uses the present continuous to describe a planned arrangement. It also adds extra information, which makes the conversation feel natural.
That's an important point. Native speakers rarely stop after one short sentence because they usually provide a little more detail.
Let's try another situation. Imagine someone asks, "Do you have any plans for next year?"
I could answer, I'm planning to improve my public speaking skills. I think it will help me become more confident at work.
Excellent. That sounds completely natural and realistic. You explained both the plan and the reason behind it.
Now, let's make things slightly less certain. What if someone asks about summer vacation, but you haven't decided yet?
Then you might say, "I might travel to another country, but I'm still comparing different options."
Or you could say, I'm thinking about taking a beach vacation, although I haven't booked anything yet.
Perfect. Those expressions communicate uncertainty without sounding confused.
Some of my vacations spend more time in the planning phase than in the actual traveling phase.
I think many listeners can relate to that. Sometimes people spend weeks researching destinations and only a few days enjoying the trip itself.
That's especially true when dozens of travel videos appear on your screen every evening. Suddenly, every destination looks equally amazing.
That's one of the challenges of modern life. Too many choices can make decisions more difficult.
Let's move to a workplace example, because many learners need English for professional situations.
Great idea. Imagine your manager asks, "What projects would you like to work on in the future?"
A strong answer could be, I'd like to work on larger projects and develop new technical skills. I'm hoping to gain more experience in leadership roles as well.
That's an excellent professional response. It sounds ambitious without sounding unrealistic.
Another common workplace question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yes, and many people become nervous when they hear that question.
Honestly, even native speakers sometimes struggle with it. 5 years can feel like a very long time.
That's true. A simple and natural answer could be, "I hope to continue growing professionally and taking on more responsibility."
Notice that the answer sounds confident, without pretending to know every detail of the future.
That's important because realistic answers are often more effective than overly complicated ones.
Let's give our listeners a speaking activity. Imagine that your best friend asks, what's one thing you'd like to achieve this year?
Pause for a moment and say your answer out loud. Use one of these structures: "I'd like to," "I'm hoping to," or "my goal is to."
For example, you could say, I'd like to become more confident speaking English.
Or perhaps, my goal is to read one English book every month.
You might also say, I'm hoping to have more conversations with native English speakers.
Excellent. The goal here is not perfection. The goal is becoming comfortable with future-focused language.
Let's raise the challenge slightly. Imagine you have won a fully paid vacation anywhere in the world.
That's a very nice problem to have.
It certainly is. Now answer this question. Where are you going, and what are you going to do there?
A natural response could be, I'm going to visit Japan. I'm planning to explore different cities and try traditional food.
Another answer could be, I'm traveling to Italy, and I'm hoping to learn more about Italian culture.
Notice how naturally multiple future expressions can work together in the same answer.
That's exactly how real conversations happen. People mix structures depending on what they want to express.
Let's review one more difference before we finish. Suppose you suddenly decide something while speaking.
Then will often becomes the natural choice.
Exactly. For example, if someone says they're thirsty, you might respond, I'll get you some water.
The decision happens at that moment, which is why will sounds natural.
But if you already planned to bring water before arriving, you might say, I'm bringing some water with me.
That's a very useful comparison because learners often wonder why native speakers switch between these forms.
Understanding the situation is usually more important than memorizing complicated rules.
I completely agree. Communication becomes much easier when you focus on meaning first and grammar second.
Before we move into our final part, let's quickly review the key expressions we've practiced today.
We've used I'm going to, I'm planning to, I'm meeting, I might, hopefully, I'd like to, and I'm hoping to.
English conversations. If you master these patterns, you'll be able to discuss the future much more naturally.
In our final part, we're going to bring everything together. We'll review the most useful phrases, give you a final speaking challenge, and help you leave this episode feeling ready to talk about your future plans confidently.
Stay with us because the final section contains practical phrases you can start using today.
And if you're enjoying this conversation so far, don't forget to like, comment, and share the episode with a friend who is learning English too.
Welcome to the final part of today's episode. We've explored several natural ways to talk about the future, and now it's time to bring everything together.
I think this might be the most practical part of the episode because we're going to focus on expressions that listeners can start using immediately after they finish listening.
That's right. One thing I've noticed is that many learners understand grammar rules but hesitate when they need to speak spontaneously.
I completely understand that feeling. Sometimes you know the grammar, but your mind suddenly becomes very quiet when somebody asks you a question in English.
That happens to almost everyone. The good news is that a few useful future expressions can help you navigate many everyday conversations.
Let's review some of our favorites from today's discussion. One of the most common expressions is, I'm going to.
For example, I'm going to start exercising more regularly, or I'm going to spend more time reading English books.
Another extremely useful expression is, I'm planning to.
You might say, I'm planning to take an online course next month, or I'm planning to improve my presentation skills.
Then we have, I'd like to, which sounds natural when discussing dreams and ambitions.
For example, I'd like to travel more in the future, or I'd like to become more confident in social situations.
We also talked about, I might, which is perfect when you're not completely sure.
You could say, I might change jobs in the future, or I might take a vacation later this year.
Another very natural expression is I'm hoping to.
That's a great way to discuss goals that depend on circumstances. You might say, I'm hoping to finish my project by the end of the month.
Or I'm hoping to improve my English pronunciation over the next few months.
Let's challenge our listeners with a short speaking activity. Imagine you're meeting an old friend who asks about your future plans.
Try answering these three questions out loud. What are you doing next weekend? What are you planning to do this year? And what would you like to achieve in the next 5 years?
Don't just think about your answers. Actually say them aloud, because speaking is how confidence grows.
That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned when studying languages. Silent understanding feels comfortable, but real improvement happens when you open your mouth and communicate.
Oh, that's such an important point. Nobody becomes a confident speaker simply by reading grammar explanations.
Exactly. Every fluent speaker started as a beginner who made mistakes and kept going anyway.
Sometimes learners worry too much about choosing between will and going to or other future forms.
That's true. While it's useful to understand the differences, communication should always come first.
Native speakers don't spend several minutes analyzing grammar before every sentence. They focus on expressing ideas clearly.
The more you practice, the more naturally these structures will come to you.
Let's do one final future challenge together. Harry, where do you think you'll be 1 year from today?
That's a great question. Hopefully, I'll be healthier, a little wiser, and still enjoying these conversations with all of our listeners.
That's a wonderful answer. I hope I'll continue learning new things, meeting interesting people, and helping English learners become more confident.
And hopefully, you'll finally organize those digital files you've been talking about for years.
I'm not making any promises about that. I might organize them, but history suggests otherwise.
That's probably the most honest future sentence you've spoken today.
Before we finish, let's quickly review today's key expressions.
We learned how to use I'm meeting for arrangements, I'm going to for plans and intentions, and will for decisions made at the moment of speaking.
We also practiced I might, hopefully, I'm planning to, I'm hoping to, and I'd like to.
These expressions will help you discuss plans, goals, hopes, ambitions, and possibilities in a natural way.
Most importantly, remember that talking about the future isn't only about grammar. It's about sharing your dreams, your plans, and your ideas with other people.
Every meaningful conversation includes some discussion about tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year.
That's why today's topic is so practical. You'll have opportunities to use these expressions almost every day.
For your final challenge, we'd like you to write 3 sentences about your future plans.
Use at least 3 different future expressions from today's episode. Try to make the sentences personal and meaningful.
Then say those sentences aloud. You'll be surprised how much confidence you can build with a few minutes of practice.
We'd also love to hear from you in the comments section.
Tell us about one thing you're planning to achieve this year and one thing you'd like to achieve within the next 5 years.
Write your answer in English, even if it's simple. Practice is always more valuable than perfection.
If you enjoyed today's episode and found it useful, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it with a friend who is learning English.
And if you haven't subscribed yet, We'd love to have you join our growing English learning community.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. We always appreciate every listener who chooses to learn English through conversation.
Keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep believing in your progress, because every small step moves you closer to your goals.
We hope today's episode helps you talk about your future with more confidence and more natural English.
Until next time, take care of yourself, keep learning, and keep moving toward the future you want to create.
Goodbye, everyone, and good luck with all those future plans you've been thinking about.
See you in the next episode of English Daisy Podcast. Take care and keep speaking English every day.